Welcome back to Muscovy, and yeah, like I said last time, we're just gonna be waiting for Mr. Donskoy to come of age, although if there's something interesting to talk about in the meantime that happens, then I'm gonna be making sure to talk about it and come back. We can fabricate a claim on Murom, which is good. And I don't think we need any more spies here. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave you at this, and see you soon. Now, I quickly want to touch upon the fact that I installed a mod. If you don't like the shape of everything, if you don't like how everything looks, just tell me in the comments. I think it looks pretty good. Also, I'm trying to build a road network in Zalesia here, which is an interesting feature of MEIOU taxes. Now, I could, let's just examine province data. I wanted to see something. Okay. And yeah, again, sometimes things can be clunky. But the thing that's interesting about this road network stuff is that roads in Russia were sort of, I guess, famously pretty terrible up until, well, very recently, up until the later Soviet times. And that's actually part of the reason why Russia in this period was so underdeveloped, in a way, compared to the rest of Europe. Let's construct a road. The reason I did that is because I noticed that my maximum manpower is 1600, and my actual manpower is 1700, 708. So for some reason we have more manpower than our maximum. So I just thought, hey, let's just contribute some manpower to the effort. Total road cost is 327, so I think we need to cover like 75. Yeah, we need to cover 75. So that's going to be most of our manpower and a lot of administrative power. And then we shall pay the rest with ducats. So it will be completed in 5 years. That was most of our manpower. Since we cannot declare war regardless, we can get ourselves some manpower back soon. Now, this is also kind of unrealistic for Russia. Well, not entirely for Muscovy. Mostly because the system of serfdom that we know existed in Russia until 1861 sometimes is claimed to not really have existed for much of the early history of Russia and monasticism. So Orthodox monks followed the example of St. Anthony, leaving detached from their fellow man to better contemplate God. Early monks lived alone, scratching out an ascetic existence in the wilderness in order to devote themselves entirely to God. Such hermits unwittingly became the object of pilgrimage as pious worshippers sought them out for advice and blessings. Other monks, known as Cenobites, lived together in small monasteries, farming and praying together. These communities formed the nucleus of small towns of peasants sought to colonize new land nearby. As more settled, monasteries were sometimes founded in close proximity to each other, forming a large community known as a lavra. Lavra, or lavri, controlled vast swaths of land and used their wealth to access charities. Finally, Stavropijak monasteries were the monasteries under the personal jurisdiction of the patriarch, representing the basis of his power. So we can either permit small monasteries, which is going to give cenobiums to various different provinces under our control, which would reduce local unrest, but also reduce local manpower modifier by -5%. And seeing as we just expended most of our manpower, I don't think that would be very good. Local settler increase, we don't need that because none of these are colonies. So I think I'm gonna permit a hermitage, which is going to give a hermitage for more trade power, missionary strength, and prestige in one of our provinces, up until 1388. So in Yurev Polski, here. Yeah, okay. Yuriev Polski. The field of Yuri. Interesting. So, as I was saying, the system of serfdom that we kind of associate Russia with, for much of the early history of Russia, didn't entirely exist, actually. State control was not quite as present in the countryside as sort of we'd come to expect, and of course also of European monarchies who had things like corvées and such for the peasants. It was more of a, I guess, more primitive in a way system where a lot of villages have a lot of self-control, They had organs such as viches, councils, that could sort of govern themselves. So there was a lot of autonomy there. But around about this time, after really the first period of the Kievan Rus ended. Ooh, is that a personal union? Somebody's under personal union? No, I guess. No, I guess it's just normal. So the Iberian Peninsula is just doing things, as always. As always, very weird. Very hard to understand what's going on there. But yes, and it started to... this sort of system started to fade away around about this time. And in Russia as well... recall. In Russia as well, the same system as Europe started to take over, where feudal lords had, of course, right to requisition labor, do stuff like that. And, well, before this, that wasn't really the case, and some people really see the rise of Moscow, and in general, the rise of northeastern principalities, such as Moscow, Vladimir, Suzdal, and in a way Tver and Ryazan as well, who are kind of secondary little group. Oh, excellent vintage. You don't really produce wine in Russia now, do you? Who gives a shit? We just got a lot of stability increase. Fine. Yeah, a lot of people see the rise of northeastern principalities as opposed to Novgorod or the southeastern principalities that were, of course, taken over by hostile foreign powers such as the Golden Horde and Poland, Lithuania. So, for example, Galicia, those principalities, Kiev, and of course the areas around Ryazan. The people who see that rise often sort of conflated, I guess, with the system that later became Russian serfdom. Because in this part of Russia, princes had a lot more power than in the rest. In the southeast, it became a little bit more like in Europe, where, well, in Europe in the previous centuries, where local nobility was much more important. And so that also kind of went into influencing the politics of Poland and Lithuania towards these areas, as we'll talk about soon. And in Novgorod, of course, there was a system that we could call plausibly a merchant republic. So, of course, a little bit less autocratic in its nature. Nobles demand increased pensions. Well, talking about that, don't really want to lose stability, so I'm gonna accept these demands. And yes, all this discussion starts off with a discussion about the road system. Now, the road network was pretty damn terrible in Russia, partially because of the different terrain sort of features and also weather features of Russia compared to Europe. It was already hard enough to maintain road networks in Europe after the fall of the Roman Empire. But in Russia, you have a couple of seasons during the spring and autumn where you essentially have a falling of snows called Rasputitsa, which essentially creates an endless sea of mud that makes, of course, any road before really the modern age and industrialization, any road construction, very, very rough. As the Germans actually discovered in World War I and World War II, and as Napoleon discovered, roads in Russia tend to be pretty annoying because of that. And especially around this time, there really wasn't, especially with the breakdown of central power from Kiev, there really wasn't any way for these small states to really maintain their own road networks that could indeed support a lot of inter-city communication, inter-territory trade. So that's part of the reason why the northeast part of Russia didn't really take on what initially were the kind of trade-focused economic values of the Kievan Rus, because the Rus was a state of traders, actually, initially. They really traded, though, along rivers, not along roads, because, again, road construction, very, very rough. They traded along mostly the Dnieper, and this is actually represented. As you can see, all the trade routes in MEIOU and taxes usually follow quite historical lines. So you can see that the trade routes in Russia, for example, mostly follow these rivers. So, of course, up here, the Volkhov River, the Dvina, and then, of course, the Great Dnieper, and the Great, well, later on, we'll have probably something along Don. Of course, as you can see, all of these rivers have modifiers that increase trade power. So, if we could go to Moscow, you can see the Moskva trade river improves a lot of things and also reduces hostile movement speed. And if we look at the tooltip, you can see the political fortunes of Moscow were closely connected with its geographical position. Of course, because the Moskva also comes from the east. So it kind of acts as a sort of crossroads, sort of, between the European part of Russia and the east, what became, rather, the Asian part of Russia, the steppe. And you can invest in new technology. I'm going to wait to invest in it until we go to war, just to save a few points in the meantime. You can also get the military horse breeding idea. Now, we have quantity to start off with. I'm not entirely sure the Russian ideas would really start with quantity, but I don't really know what ideas are really... Oh, quite a lot. So perhaps, of all these, aristocratic would be the best one to start off with for Muscovy. Definitely not standing army quality. Great and noble loyalty improves. Well, that's good. Welcome development. Now, we cannot see the loyalty of great and noble because there's a bit of a bug in the UI for not having a DLC, because I don't have any of the DLCs, so I do not have the estate interface. To actually check out the estates, I need to go to the, I believe, decisions, and yes, estates. And unfortunately, it doesn't really say whether or not they're loyal to me or not. But that's just nothing to wait, not the lesser nobles. I want the greater nobles. So we just got no loyalty with them, which is of course really good because they have about 20% of the power. So they will become quite strong later. But of course, we can still do, like, the system is in place. It's just bugged with the UI. Now, yes, Gilarids. Things are going on in the Middle East, and I think we can get ourselves some claims. We have a core, okay. Wait, we cannot claim Ryazan. Oh, we need to be at least 50, I guess, because we already got some claims earlier. Now, one thing that I'm gonna do is, I noticed that I could do... I can go to my court. Policies. I can get mediate internal disputes. I'll do that, because it costs diplomats and diplomatic... Oh, -1 diplomatic reputation. Well, whatever. I will just trade a diplomat for some extra stability increase. Let's see. What about my state? So, increase threshold 150, yearly multiplier 1.5. Okay, so we have 15 points per year. That's pretty okay. Still have level 3 across the board. Good. Okay. So, yes, essentially the underdeveloped road network in this area partially stemmed from the political division and also partially influenced the political and economic division of the area, and also kind of the regression from a state that really valued trade and, of course, the development of such trade, partially due to warfare, because the Kievan Rus often fought against the Byzantine Empire, who right now is reduced to Constantinople, pretty much entirely. Do they have something else? No, they have Thessalonica. they also have Thessalonica, and yeah, okay. So they fought a lot of wars with the Byzantine Empire, and we know from the, of course, peace deals that were recorded by the Byzantines that what the Rus often asked if they won were trade concessions. So they really valued heavily the trade that came from the Baltic, came through the rivers, because that's how that trade route worked, and then through down the Dnieper into the Black Sea. Of course, when you're exiled to the landlocked areas of northern Russia, northeastern Russia, without really much of a trade network except the rivers that mostly flow in between and don't really lead to your political control of when the river is actually going to the sea. So we do not control Kiev, and we do not control Novgorod, which is where, of course, the river is going to the sea and allow us to trade with, of course, the rest of the world. Then that kind of leads to, of course, isolation and the economic priorities shift from trade, so producing of trade resources such as timber, furs, etc., to subsistence agriculture. So, of course, what later became one of the primary bases of the Russian economic foundation, namely agriculture and its, well, unreliability, kind of leading to sort of ups and downs in between centuries of course, sometimes really interesting, sometimes having famines and such. That kind of can be traced back to all of that. Of course, loss of political control over the southern part of the Russian land, subsequent division, and then development of political and economic institutions that sort of reflect that. That's just kind of to say that what we really think normally about Russia, it namely being a kind of backward state, backward and very authoritarian in its nature, wasn't really always the case. Initially, the values that in Russia were kind of considered important for the nobility even, were a little bit closer to, well, maybe something that would be found in Italy than something that would be found in, for example, Lithuania. Yes, again, some monasteries. We're gonna get the monasteries in Zalesia. Okay, fine, which is where I'm also building roads. Ooh, this is very, very bad. Farming efficiency of 15%. This is because of the weather conditions. And again, of course, becoming more agriculturally focused. Ooh, Renaissance influences in Moscow. Straight from Italy and across Europe, the cultural rebirth of the ancient Greeks and Romans brought with it new ways of thinking about the world we live in. They give us a new understanding of how we relate to other people, in ways that change politics as much as it changes art. While encompassing a multitude of cultural movements expressed in a multitude of ways in various different places, there are a few sire tenets? There are a few... I don't know what that means. Sire tenets bringing continuity to a cultural age, so the blooming of the Renaissance will be felt over time. Okay. Well, I guess we can talk about art. I guess that's related to institutions, right? So, is there an institution map mode? Where is it? Institutions. Okay. So, Italy has banking, and I'm guessing that that event for the Renaissance means that somewhere we'll have the Renaissance coming in. In 1365, that seems a little early. We barely have humanism in this age and period. Yeah, I'm guessing that was a little bit of a bug. Also because the Renaissance was mostly spurred by the fall of the Byzantine Empire, which is kind of why Russia didn't really have a Renaissance, because the Renaissance really taps back into what is the ancient Roman sort of culture. And the myth of reviving Rome in Russia took really the form of, well, the famous sort of political statement that Moscow is the third Rome. And of course, we'll talk more about that later once we reach the Russian Empire, that for Moscow, really the main cultural mythos behind that isn't the Roman Empire, but the Byzantine Empire and Orthodox Christianity. So really the basis of what became the Renaissance as a movement of thought really don't exist, because Moscow doesn't really have a imperial past to look to. A lot of the Renaissance was really about getting the bases of Roman thought back into society, seeing as in Italy it was seen that the Middle Ages, with its political divisions, its sort of course, fall of power of Italy from the European sphere, replaced by France and the Holy Roman Empire in Germany. Really, that was seen as part of a result of the sort of barbarification of the Middle Ages, and of course the Renaissance kind of wanted to bring back the glorious times of the Roman Empire, where Italy was not only a force of, I guess they called it civilization across Europe and across part of the world as well, because there was also, of course, the question of the Holy Land, etc. Bringing back those times, of course, for those intellectuals was first and foremost a really useless. Ignore them. Was first and foremost a question of getting back the Roman thought process, the Roman philosophy, the Roman art, which was seen as rationalistic as compared to the ugly, barbarous, Middle Ages type stuff. Very, very quickly explaining that. And yes, of course, as an art movement, so the Renaissance doesn't really come into Russia. Ooh, so it looks like the Teutonics are winning in Lithuania and coming into Smolensk, but they're also losing their own home territory. So Danzig has been sacked by the Poles, and right now Königsberg and Elbing are also under siege. Yeah, the Teutonic Order might not survive a lot. We already had, at this point in history, if by we mean Russia and a Russian state, we already had, we cannot actually claim that. So we should probably stop spy networking. Who can we spy network? I guess we can spy network our ally. Or, no, it's spy network Smolensk. No, not improved relations. Stop. Yeah. Oh, finally. Wait. Okay, what? Oh, no. So he's come of age at 15. Very nice. He is 4-2 and free, which I guess is fine. And Dmitry Danskoy's faith. Now, as the ruler of an Orthodox nation, the knyaz earned his legitimacy from his faith. There was, however, a great difference between a ruler who truly believed and one who simply went through the motions. The new knyaz is a cynic, putting on a show for the superstitious peasants, but privately condemning the religion. So that means that we're gonna lose piety if we let him do that. Convince him to renew the faith, which was... okay, so lose his administrative power. Or convince him that faith is a private matter, which loses both. So probably shouldn't do that. Now, what does piety actually affect? Missionary strength. So it reduces local unrest, but it also reduces a lot of other things. So I don't think we should have too much piety. I guess losing piety is okay. The knyaz is dead. Our nation has a new ruler. Long live the knyaz. Let us celebrate the coming reign. But how shall we organize? So, a massive celebration that loses Ducat but gains us legitimacy and prestige. Or a chance to stability. So let's do a huge celebration, because we do have the money. Brilliant strategist. The character is a genius of strategy and tactics. This character has mastered fully the art of war and is more at ease on the battlefield than anywhere else. His plans are so devious and effective, he's able to devise strategies that win battles again and again. In this chaotic world, few are capable enough to be called brilliant strategists. So that's plus 10% morale of armies, plus 5% land force limit, and plus 50% prestige from land battles. Well, that's pretty great, because we already have quite a bit of prestige at 18. And right now, we can finally attack people. So, uncertain succession. Not good. Personal union with Ryazan. I'm guessing under Ryazan. Well, that would be bad. That would be really bad. But I don't think it's going to come to that. Now, are they building troops? I do not know. Because I'm about to attack Murom, who is only allied with Tarusa, which is a small principality to the south of us. Murom, on the other hand, is only kind of a small little principality. Now, you're also allied with Karachev. Okay, I can gain a lot from this war. So let's invest in handguns. I believe the first recorded use of handguns in Russian history was in 1380 something. So I guess it's pretty historically accurate to get them right now. And oh, that also enables new troops. Now, feudal heavy cavalry or Greek names. Pronoiaroi. Okay, medium cavalry. The difference is this has more defensive shock and this is more defensive morale. I think I'll do feudal heavy cavalry, although of course to be a little bit more accurate, I would have to have this medium cavalry because of course this is a Balkan type of troop, so Byzantine influenced makes more sense for us than German and Italian influence, but that's fine. And then from infantry, we get Skutatoi or flag infantry. Flag infantry. Royal power was expanded by placing peasant armies recruited by local bears under royal control. This bandiera or flag infantry were okay, so just banner armies. Okay. Or Skutatoi, who were professional infantry of the medieval Roman Empire, so of course Byzantines. This gives more defensive morale, and this gives more defensive shock. Fine, let's do that. And also, I shall improve the army maintenance, which is going to be costly, but it is going to be needed once we attack Murom. We can seek the blessing of a holy hermit. We shall not do that for now, because of course we're about to go to war. So what was I talking about? Oh well, also the fact that we just replaced Druzhina, aka the ancient Russian. We go ahead and it doesn't really show the old units. It'll show outdated. So there was also the Druzhina, who were sort of the companions and bodyguards of the knyaz, the prince. Quite a little interesting stories attached to those kinds of things. Now we could make Donskoy our general, which would be quite cool, but he doesn't have an heir, so I don't want him to die. I'm not gonna make him a general. What I am gonna do instead, our army tradition right now is 17 because we haven't been fighting a lot. I'm going to go to the noble estate. I believe it's the greater nobles, and I'm gonna ask for sport. And I'm gonna ask for a general of merit. Oh, only 20 tradition. Huh. Then that's not very good. I'll get their manpower instead. I'm about to piss off my estates quite a bit. What can I demand from you? You do not give me manpower. You just don't. Advisor cost, yearly army tradition. Fine, I don't really like any of those. We don't need for the war that's coming the support of the levies for the estates, so that should be fine. Okay, so ooh, you do not have a fort there. That's a problem. So perhaps I should go to Kolomna first and take out the Tarusin army. There might be a river crossing between here and Kolomna. Yes, there is. That's unfortunate, but oh well, something good has to be done. Can I get an additional levy? Nope, I cannot. So I will indeed get a general with military power. Very bad. Shuvalov, only one shock and nothing else. So, we shall wait until our army is fully organized, and then we shall go on the offensive.